is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Angel Pastor. It's Wednesday, the 13th of September, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy warned that the rare meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un could become a catalyst for World War III. President Bongbong Marcos reveals the best birthday gift he received this year, and his birthday wish as the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture. Iran and the United States prisoner swap deal is on the go, and the United States is willing to release billions of dollars in frozen Iran funds to make this possible. A recent report reveals that U.S. poverty rate surged last year, with children hit the hardest. And a gas dispute in Australia threatens global supply and prices due to problems between an oil company giant and its LNG workers. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. First in our news, the impacts of climate change are now inevitable as the world has reached the point of no return. That's why Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy is calling for unity to address this issue. Kay Villan for this news.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy declared that we have now reached the point of no return regarding climate change. This follows extensive flooding that occurred in Libya, resulting in the loss of thousands of lives. Recently, a 7-magnitude earthquake struck Morocco, where approximately 3,000 people died. Because of these events, the good pastor has called on all nations to unite to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and fossil fuel consumption.
Ang ibig sabihin nito, we have crossed the point of no return when it comes to climate change. Ngayon, kung magkakasundo ang lahat ng bansa to reduce the carbon dioxide emission, kasi sirang-sira ng ozone layer, noon pa sinasabi ko, di ba? 2005 pa.
According to Pastor Apollo, nature should be cherished because it is a gift from God. He added that it is also possible that nature may retaliate against humanity due to its greed and neglect.
Kapag sinisira natin ang planetang Earth na binigay sa atin, sinong masisira? Di ba tayo rin? Dahil sa kasakiman at kamunduhan ng tao. Oh, puro greediness, puro selfishness, puro pang sarili. Kung anong mahahakot nila para sa kanilang sarili gagawin nila without caring for the environment. You know, trees are already here without us, and they will remain here without us. If we cut them off and then we destroy the nature God has given to us in wanton greediness and selfishness, it will all come back to us. Tulad ito, itong mga desierto ito, di nakakabahanon yan. Ngayon, doon na pumupunta. Climate change yan eh. Huwag kayong magtaka, isang araw, ang Pilipinas magkaroon ng snow. Because climate change eh. Oh. Sa Amerika ngayon, they are suffering 120, 130 degrees heat. Napakainit. Oh. Ano lang pinakamandang lugar ngayon? Glory Mountain.
Turcal Pastor Apollo is a well-known environmentalist in the Philippines. He founded the Sunshine Philippines movement and dedicated it to preserving environmental harmony and advocating for the protection of nature. One of the primary showcases of Pastor Apollo's efforts is the Glory Mountain, where thousands of pine trees have been planted. The ongoing planting of pine trees in the Philippines, especially in Davao City, under Pastor Apollo's leadership, has been a significant contribution. What was once a flood-prone area in the southern part of Mount Apo is now a sanctuary for preserved nature.
Tayo nagpasimula ang Sunshine Philippines movement in our own little way to help mitigate climate change. Salamat naman sa Glory Mountain, we made our own climate change. Napakaganda ng weather doon. Pinagpala ng Ama. Ngayon, kung magpapasimula tayo, the effect will be in 10 to 15 years. Kung lahat magtatanim ng mga punong kahoy para bumalik muli ang ozone, pagkatapos ang carbon dioxide emission mawala, babalik yung dating sigla ng ating planet Earth.
For God and my beloved Philippines, Cablelink, SMNI News.
The United Arab Emirates sent rescue teams and critical aid to the flood victims in Libya as the disaster killed thousands within a week. Gratero Umore reports.
The United Arab Emirates was one of the first countries to have sent urgent aid to Libya to help the victims of the floods caused by Storm Daniel. A relief aircraft carried large shipments of shelter, food, and medical supplies has already left the UAE for the North African country. The Gulf state also pledged to send search and rescue teams to assist the flood survivors. The UAE sent the urgent aid upon the orders of its president, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The devastating floods caused by Storm Daniel reached a peak in northeastern Libya on the 10th of September. More than 5,000 people are believed to have died, while about 10,000 others are feared missing as of Wednesday, the 13th of September. The occurrence of the deadly disaster was a heavy blow to a country already facing a long-term conflict, which has seen it divided under two ruling powers. The ruler of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and the Crown Prince of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, also sent their condolences to the affected families and victims in Libya. Reporting from Dubai, this has been Gratero Mori, SMNI News, United Arab Emirates.
Representatives from gas giant Chevron and the unions representing workers at its two major facilities in Western Australia will meet again to stop a prolonged protest action that threatens to affect global gas supply and prices. Shena Salim reports.
The Australian Fair Work Commission booked a hearing on September 22 after the industrial disputes body agreed to rule on the escalating tensions between Chevron and its workers at its liquefied natural gas or LNG plants in Western Australia. The hearing was set after the first of the strikes started last week at its massive Gorgon and Wheatstone sites over pay and working conditions. On September 22, Australia's Fair Work Commission, or FWC, will launch a full bench assessment with Chevron and the Australian Workers' Union and Electrical Trades Union for bargaining declarations. The plants supply about 7% of the global LNG supply and 47% of Western Australia's domestic gas. Chevron Australia is in favor of the expedited hearing set on September 22, but the unions argued the date was too soon for them to adequately respond to the company's submissions. The company on Monday said it no longer expects to reach a deal with unions and would try an untested legal strategy to stop industrial action at its two massive LNG facilities in Western Australia after weeks of negotiation failed. FWC will be forced to intervene and impose its will on parties in case both sides fail to renegotiate. The Commission warned that the dispute has a potentially devastating effect on global energy markets, which was why it expedited the hearing. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Shina Salim, SMNI News, Australia.
After receiving a warning from the United States, the president of Iran said its government has the authority on how to use $6 billion in frozen funds set to be released by Washington as part of a prisoner exchange deal. Milka Sadekades reports.
Assalamualaikum. The United States issued a blanket waiver for international banks to transfer $6 billion in frozen Iranian funds from South Korea to Qatar without fear of U.S. sanctions amid an ongoing prisoner swap deal between the Iranians and the Americans. Under the deal, the U.S. will release 5 Iranian citizens as well as $6 billion in frozen funds in exchange for the 5 Americans detained in Iran. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken signed a blanket waiver issuing for international banks to transfer $6 billion in frozen Iranian money from South Korea to Qatar without fear of U.S. sanctions. Washington said Iran can only use the money for humanitarian goods like food and medicine, and warned it would monitor and freeze the released funds again if Tehran tried to spend the money in violation of U.S. sanctions. Responding to the warning, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi said that the money acquired from Iran's oil revenues belongs to the Iranian people and the Iranian government, so the Islamic Republic can decide what to do with it. Iran also denied accusations from the United Nations and human rights groups that the Americans were wrongfully detained, noting that they were healthy and were treated humanely. Raisi also urged Kiev to provide the necessary evidence and documents to prove its allegation that Iran is providing Russia with drones being used in the war in Ukraine. Iran previously insisted it had sold drones to Moscow before the start of the war. Barakalafikum Jamian, Kanhada Melchizedek Kadi sa Akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
The United States suffered a surge in its poverty rate last year, and among the reasons were the rising cost of living and the country's government removing federal programs that provided aid to families during the pandemic. Sigrid Castañeda has the details.
A new data from the U.S. Census Bureau called the income, poverty and health insurance coverage in the United States 2022 revealed Americans' economic challenges. In 2022, a significant 12.4% of the U.S. population lived in poverty, a sharp jump from the 7.8% recorded in 2021. This rise is primarily attributed to skyrocketing inflation, which negated nominal income gains. Median household incomes in the U.S. dropped by 2.3% in 2022, marking the third consecutive year of decline. The poverty threshold for an American family of four rose from $31,453 in 2021 to $34,518 in 2022. Child poverty rates also doubled in 2022. The data showed that the child poverty rate more than doubled from 5.2% in 2021 to 12.4% in 2022. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, it was the biggest change in the child poverty since the agency began tracking the index in 2009. U.S. think tank Center on a Budget and Policy Priorities said that the rise in poverty amounted to an increase of 15.3 million Americans living in poverty. Meanwhile, the supplemental poverty measure said that the expanded federal child tax credit in 2022 was the cause of the sharp increase in child poverty. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden blamed Republicans lawmakers, accusing them of blocking the extension of the child tax credit while favoring tax cuts for the wealthy. He pledged to continue fighting for its restoration. Reporting this has been Sigrid Castañeda, SMNI News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held a rare meeting in Russia. On the same day, Pyongyang reportedly fired unidentified ballistic missiles toward East Sea. Silla Yun reports.
Putin and Kim held a rare meeting in Russia as South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff and Japan confirmed that North Korea fired unidentified ballistic missiles toward the East Sea or the Sea of Japan. The two leaders met each other and pledged his country North Korea's support for Russia in its standoff with the United States and its allies. Kim also made a rare visit to meet Putin at the space facility at the far eastern Amur region of Russia. According to Kim, quote, "Russia has risen for a sacred fight to protect its national sovereignty and safety against hegemonic forces. We will always stand together against imperialism," end of quote. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov later told journalists that negotiations between the Russian and North Korean delegations followed the remarks by Putin and Kim lasted approximately an hour. The two leaders then had a one-to-one meeting. The United States had already warned Kim ahead of his state visit not to sell weapons to Russia. Meanwhile, neither Russia nor North Korea has expressed any intention of engaging such arrangement. To recall, Kim arrived at the Primorsky Krai of Russia on Tuesday, Tuesday morning, reportedly using an armored train that has carried the Kim family for decades. Kim arrived along with the General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea and the President of State Affairs of the Democratic Republic of Korea, or DPRK. Alexander Kozlov, the Minister of Natural Resources and Ecology of Russia, and Primorsky Krai Governor Oleg Kozhemyaka welcomed and greeted them at a local train station. Governor Kozhemyaka said he was looking forward to more cooperation between Primorsky Krai and DPRK.
Мы 4 года назад встречались здесь же с председателем государственных дел, товарищем Ким Чен Ыном, и мы поговорили о том, что, конечно, уже мы ожидаем в этом году открытия совместных проектов, связанных с развитием туризма, развитием сельского хозяйства. То есть, безусловно, это вопросы, связанные, в общем-то, и со строительством. Поэтому, конечно, сейчас комиссии будут прорабатывать эти механизмы, но мы надеемся, что здравоохранение...
It has been 4 years since his first meeting with Kim Jong-un and the President of the State Affairs of the DPRK at the same location. Therefore, on Kim's second visit, the governor expects the launch of joint projects for further development of tourism and agriculture with the DPRK.
Того, что эти контакты будут продолжены на уровне не только глав государств, но на уровне рабочих групп, на уровне различных комиссий, но и самое главное, на уровне тех деловых и экономических связей, которые и дружественных, которые всегда связывали наши страны. Мы к этому готовы, предложили несколько вариантов сотрудничества. Я думаю, что мы эту работу продолжим, но и по мере возможности, конечно, обменяемся визитами, в том числе и в Корею со стороны приморской делегации, как только будут уже сняты окончательные ограничения по системе здравоохранения Кореи.
The governor hopes Kim's visit to Russia will be a sign of the extension of commercial and economic relations between the two countries. Now that the DPRK health authorities have lifted their control measures, he proposed several programs through bilateral visits, including a delegation from the Primorsky Krai to the DPRK. So, Isabela Unimnida SMNI News, South Korea.
In relation to this, Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy raised concerns over the possible consequence of Kim Jong-un and President Putin's meeting in Russia. Hannah Jane Sancho files this report.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ sees North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's visit to President Vladimir Putin as a dangerous step. In his program Give Us This Day on Wednesday, Pastor Apollo revealed that this could potentially be the catalyst for the start of the Third World War. This comes in light of reports suggesting that the primary reason for Kim's visit to Russia may be related to concerns over potential supply of weapons, which has raised alarms among Western nations.
So, may mga reaksyon yan eh. Kung anong ginagawa ng isang kalaban mo, kung maaari mong gawin, gagawin mo rin. So, ngayon, nagtutulungan na sila. Papunta na ito sa tinatawag na World War III. Malaking tribulation ito. Ito yung magiging mitsa. Kung hindi ito mapigilan, ito magiging mitsa ng Third World War.
According to Pastor Apollo, it is relatively easy to transport these weapons, especially if Russia requests it, as North Korea is connected to mainland China, and they can route them through there to reach Russia.
Pumupunta si Kim Jong-un sa North Korea, because North Korea na connected yan sa mainland China, through China, papunta na ng Russia yan, boundary lang eh. Nagte-train lang yan. So kung mag-supply ng armas yan, hindi na mag-aeroplano, by train na lang. Underground pa. Hindi wala nang hinto. Naku, matindi to. Di ba? Si Kim Jong-un pa naman, palaban masyado.
According to the good pastor, in order to halt the escalation of the situation, it is necessary to cease the supply of war weapons on both sides, especially in Ukraine, which has long been receiving arms from Western nations. He said it is also possible that not only North Korea, but also Iran and other countries allied with Russia will assist in supplying weapons to Moscow.
So, mga malalakas na armas na itong ginagamit ngayon eh. At hindi pa nagkakaubusan. Marami ng mga sundalo na mamatay both sides by the hundreds of thousands na. Ngayon, kung di pa mapipigilan yan, gagawa rin ng paraan yung kabila, tulad ng Russia, na bawat 5 segundo ata, nagpapaputok na sila ng mga missile sa kanilang multiple rocket launchers sa Ukraine. Tinitira ngayon yung Kiev na. Nagtitirahan na sila sa kanilang mga capital cities. Ako, delikado to. Kaya, to avert this, kailangan maghinto na yung pagsusupply ng mga armas. Mag-usap na. So, matatandaan na una nang nag-supply ang mga kanlurang bansa, Estados Unidos at mga pinagsama-samang bansa sa Europa ng mga armas pandigma sa Ukraine sa simula pa lamang ng military intervention ng Russia sa Ukraine. Sa pag-aakalang kung sila ay magtutulungan, magagapi nila ang Russia. Na-underestimate mo yung kalaban. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa naubos ang missile nila. Meron namang isang magsusupply. Sino pa yung iba? Baka may Iran pa diyan. Baka may iba pang mga bansang katuwang ng Russia.
It should be noted that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine originally stemmed from Ukraine's failure to comply with the Minsk agreement and its alleged mistreatment and discrimination against Russian-speaking people in the Donbas region, which is part of Ukraine that Russia annexed in September last year. In the end, Pastor Apollo stated that because both sides refused to back down, it is possible that there will be no clear winner, and the outcome of the conflict could lead to mutually assured destruction. The most frightening scenario would be if these countries were to resort to using nuclear missiles, potentially resulting in the world's devastation and humanity's extinction. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNI News.
The Department of Education needs the confidential funds, as said by Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy, following the report that there are schools in the country involved in the recruitment activities of the terrorist New People's Army or NPA. The good pastor also assured the public that about Vice President Duterte when it comes to money. Here's Jason Rubrico reports.
In his Give Us This Day program aired live on Wednesday, Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy defended Vice President Sara Duterte against those who are criticizing the confidential funds requested by the Department of Education or DepEd. Pastor Apollo said DepEd, with Vice President Sara Duterte as the secretary, should receive all the confidential funds that they need. This follows a report by Education Undersecretary Michael Poa that 16 high schools in Metro Manila are allegedly involved in the recruitment activities of the NPA. Poa further revealed that 12% of the rebels who surrendered from 2016 to 2022 were minors. The DepEd official also said that more than 5,000 minors were discovered involved in drug-related activities from July 2022 to July 2023.
Now, she also is hitting the nail on the head. Because this is where the CPP-NPA, NDF, and their cohorts are recruiting students to become NPAs. Activists first, and then they evolve into red fighters. Go to the mountain and die for nothing. That's why she needs all the confidential fund that she requested. This is for the surveillance in coordination with law enforcement, for drugs activities there in school, and for the recruitment of the rebel group, the CPP-NP NDF terrorist group.
Pastor Apollo emphasized that the CPP, NP, NDF are trying to block DepEd from getting the said confidential funds because they know that Vice President Sara is serious about completely stopping the communist terrorist groups from recruiting students in public schools.
That's why they are blocking her, because they know that she is serious in the work of addressing the problems caused by the recruitment of the CPP-NP and their cohorts in our schools. Very well. This is the mission of our DepEd Secretary, at the same time Vice President. That's why they are trying to hinder her. They are trying to stop and try to malign her or try to bedevil what she is doing.
The good pastor emphasized that the public should not worry about Vice President Duterte regarding money.
We know Inday Sara, I am from Davao City. She grew up here. She is as straight as an arrow. With regards to money, you don't worry about her. I will tell you, I can witness to that.
Meanwhile, when asked about the current state of the education system under the leadership of Vice President Duterte, this is what the good pastor said.
Excellent. Vice President Inday Sara Duterte is perfect and excellent to be our DepEd Secretary.
For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ supports Ombudsman Samuel Martirez's proposal for a law in the Philippines mandating the teaching of God-centered GMRC, or good manners and right conduct, in schools as a measure against corruption. MJ Mondihar tells us more.
Ang corruption po ngayon sa Pilipinas ay nagiging endemic. Ang corruption po ngayon sa Pilipinas ay nagiging parang fashion, becomes a fad, because money becomes power.
As someone who handles complaints involving government officials, Ombudsman Samuel Martirez warned that corruption in the Philippines has reached alarming levels. His comments are rooted in substantial evidence gathered by the Office of the Ombudsman.
Mayroong mga departamento ng gobyerno hindi nyo akalain ay corrupt, akala nyo natutulog, pero mas corrupt pala yun sa ibang ahensya ng gobyerno na akala nyo ay corrupt.
Martirez's solution is to strengthen efforts in teaching good behavior, especially good manners and right conduct, or GMRC, focusing on God-centered values.
Ang korupsyon po sa ngayon ay hindi mapaglalabanan ng batas lamang. All our laws on corruption are post factum, after the fact. Kailangan po natin ng isang haligi na magbabago po ng ating ugali. We have to introduce, as I'd always been saying, a subject from kindergarten until college on God-centered values formation.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ sees eye to eye with Ombudsman Martirez, expressing his support during his live Give Us This Day program aired on Wednesday, September 13th.
You know, Ombudsman Samuel Martirez hit the target. He hit the nail. He hammered the nail right on the head. This is what I've been talking about. Somebody asked me before, how can we root out corruption? I said, let them all become a member of the Kingdom Nation. Because in my capacity as a citizen of the country and as a spiritual leader, I can admonish, I can preach about incorruptibility in public office, but it's not nothing, because they're not under me.
As a spiritual leader, Pastor Apollo emphasizes honesty, especially in handling money. In spiritual terms, he explained that corruption cannot be eliminated unless it changes from within, which can only be achieved through spiritual repentance.
So I love what Samuel Martirez, the Ombudsman, said when he said this. Take out that good-centered, good manners and right conduct aspect, and you will be a failure. Without God, as I told you, we can all do all the laws. You can do all the laws of the country to curb corruption. But I said, if you are corrupt from within, whether you are put in a high position or low position or whatever position, in government or out of government, you will be a corrupt person.
Pastor Apollo then expressed his gratitude that there are still individuals like Martires in government. The good pastor also praised for more upright leadership among government officials so the Philippines will be more blessed.
Your question is, what is my take on this subject? I've been just talking a while ago for our school to implement good manners and right conduct. It should be God-centered. That's why I said Ombudsman Martires really hit the nail on the head when he mentioned about this. I was really so thankful that there are persons like him who really are in government. And we pray that many more Samuel Martires will evolve into public office. Amen. Praise the Father.
For Ganamabel of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
On his birthday, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. wished for a more developed agricultural sector and better livelihood for Filipinos. He also said that the best birthday gift he received was the completion of the implementing rules and regulations of the new Agrarian Emancipation Act. President Catarong files this report.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. revealed that the best gift that he received on his 66th birthday was the completion of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the new Agrarian Emancipation Act, or Republic Act No. 11953. The president made the remarks a day before his birthday at a time when the Department of Agrarian Reform presented the IRR of the new Agrarian Emancipation Act.
At ako'y nagpapasalamat sa inyong lahat, sa lahat ng kasama natin upang mabuo natin ang IRR ng New Emancipation Law. At on a personal note, nagpapasalamat ako. Ito na yata ang pinakamagandang birthday gift na natanggap ko sa buong buhay ko. Maraming salamat.
Aside from the IRR, the president also signed the executive order for the extension of the moratorium on the payment of the debt of agrarian reform beneficiaries. As the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, President Marcos said that ensuring the well-being of Filipino farmers, protection for their crops, and an abundant harvest were among his birthday wish. The president also hoped for a better agricultural sector and good weather that would benefit all Filipino farmers.
Maging maayos na ang agrikultura at malaman na natin kung ano ba talaga ang weather, wet season ba o dry season, para naman matulungan natin yung mga farmer natin. Yun lamang naman ang aking panalangin pa rin hanggang ngayon.
President Marcos reaffirmed his administration's goal to support Filipino farmers and meet their needs for more vigorous local production. The president also expressed his gratitude to the Department of Agrarian Reform and called for a whole-of-nation approach to achieving a stable agricultural sector in the Philippines. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Cablelink Catarong, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo Quiboloy has something to ask or say when asked about the people's clamor for former President Rodrigo Duterte to re-enter the political arena. Daniela Paulite reports.
It will be considered a blessing for the Filipinos if former President Rodrigo Duterte returns to politics. This is what Pastor Apollo Quiboloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ said in his Give Us This Day program this Wednesday.
It would be a blessing to the Filipino people if the president can somehow go back and in any capacity serve the people again. But you know, he's been president. He served the Filipino people for a long time. And well, we'll be so glad to, at least in a way, if he can be convinced to do that.
This comes following a meeting of several former high-ranking government officials, including former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, former Senate President Tito Soto III, Senator Christopher Bongo, and Duterte himself. Arroyo also confirmed that she is encouraging Duterte to be active again in politics. But according to Pastor Apollo, this decision still is up to Duterte on whether he can play the role of an active politician.
It's up to the president. He knows his capacity. He knows his health, where he can still be able to do the task of being an active politician in any capacity.
The good pastor said he would respect Duterte's decision and that Filipinos will continue to support the former president.
The bottom line is rest with him. If he decides to do so, the Filipino people will be happy. If he decides not to do so, the Filipino people will be praying for him and his health, that he may be given a long life by the Almighty Father.
For God and my beloved country, this has been Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy expressed his support to Laban Kasama ang Bayan anchors Ka Eric and Dr. Lorraine Badoy following a case filed against them by a journalist. The good pastor also emphasized that they should not be ashamed to stand by their principles. Carlo de la Peña has the details.
Continue to be bold, continue to be brave, and continue the crusade against the CPP, NP, NDF, and their terroristic activities and their terroristic rampage of wanton killing of our people in the Philippines. So they are now aghast because they are being hit right on target. They are inflicting damage to this terrorist group, the CPP and PNDF. And you know, the challenge of Ka Eric to Carol and his son is to condemn the CPP and PNDF, which both failed to do.
This is what Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy said to Laban Kasama ang Bayan anchors Jeffrey Ka Eric Celis and Dr. Lorraine Badoy following a civil case filed against them by journalist Atom Araulio. Pastor Apollo stressed that they should not be ashamed to stand by their principles that are worth fighting for.
You know, what I cannot understand about these people is that they are connected with them. But when you tell them that you are connected with them, they sue you. I don't understand that. If you are standing for something and you are a revolutionary, don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. Admit that you are really supporting them. And you will have my respect.
Amen.
But you are connected. You are in support of their cause, which is the cause of the CPP and PNDF terrorist group. And then when these people in Laban Kasamang Bayan would connect you with them, you sue them. I don't understand that. Me, when I stand for something, I would die and live for that something, but I will never deny it. I will never deny it.
According to the good pastor, one should never waver, although there will be critics that will try to ridicule your principles.
You know, it's not very easy to be designated as an appointed son of God. You will have the ridicule of the world. And if I was afraid like you, I would deny. No, I'm not a son of God. No. I'm just a preacher. But then in private, I would be saying, I'm a son of God, you know. No. Whether I'm ridiculed or not, when the Father told me that I am that appointed by Him, and then He proclaimed me to the whole world, I'm embarrassed at the first, you know. Sometimes I want to hide. But I did not deny the wish of the Father. I did not deny the will of the Father.
Pastor Apollo also questioned why Atom Araulio and his mother Carol Araulio could not condemn the atrocities that the communist terrorist group, the CPP, NPA, NDF had done to the Philippines for more than 50 years.
So you, who are communists, You're connected to CPP and NDF. My understanding fails me. You're very intelligent people. Atom and his mother are very intelligent people. The whole world knows that you are supporting this group. And when you are being publicly exposed that you are such, you show the people that are exposing you, when in fact it is true. I don't understand that. Please let me understand, so that I can believe that you are true revolutionaries of your cause. Amen. Now you are seeking redress from our government, whom you want to topple down.
In the end, Pastor Apollo again urged Atom and Carol Arroyo to accept the challenge of Celis and Badoy if they are truly not an ally of the communist terrorist group.
So, Miss Carol Arroyo and Mr. Atom Arroyo answer the challenges of the two individuals, anchors of SMNI, Laban Kasamang Bayan, Dr. Lorraine Badoy and Ka Eric Celis. Answer the challenge, and we will listen to you. We listen to your answer. If not, then your silence is betraying you for who you are.
For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy believes that the declaration of martial law in the country saved the Philippines from the hands of communists. Hannah Jane Sancho reports.
Sa matagal na panahon, Chairman, binigyan po ng napakasamang imahe yung September 21. Ang narinig lang po natin ay isang narrative. Alam niyo po, Chairman, sa mundong ito, dalawa dapat ang narrative na naririnig natin. Kung narinig na po natin yung isang narrative, okay. Pero wag naman natin isuppress yung isang narrative. Yung isang narrative po ay itong martial law ay nakapagdulot din po ito ng pagliligtas sa ating bansa na tayo po ay maging communist country. At marami din po tayong mga kasundaluhan ang nagbigay po ng buhay para maligtas po ang ating bayan na tayo po ay makubkob ng mga komunista. Kasi nung panahon po na yan, Chairman, ay malakas na malakas ang komunista sa Southeast Asia. Katulad po ng nangyari sa Korea, katulad po ng nangyari din sa Vietnam. Kung natatandaan niyo po sa Indonesia, napakalakas din po ng komunista dyan. Nagkataon lang po na matindi yung kanilang presidente nung panahon na yun. Tinapos niya agad yung problema doon. At ganun din po sa Malaysia. Kaya po itong pagtatag ng martial law, hindi naman po natin sinasabi na pinasisinungalingan natin yung sinasabi naman ng isang narrative. Oo, sige, nandyan yung narrative ninyo, pero may isang narrative. Huwag naman natin solohin lang. Kailangan kung kinikilala ninyo, yung mga bayani nyo dyan, meron din isang bayani dito. At dapat din natin silang kilalanin. Sapagkat kung hindi dahil sa kanila, hindi natin mai enjoy lahat ito. Ini-enjoy natin ang kalayaan na ito dahil sa sakripisyo ng mga sundalo na ito.
This is a statement made by Senator Robin Hood Padilla during a committee hearing in the Senate. With this proposal to declare September 21 each year as a day for commemorating martial law in the country as a day for unsung heroes. In the program Give Us This Day on Wednesday, Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ expresses support for Senator Padilla's proposal. Pastor Apollo emphasized that if it weren't for the declaration of martial law, the Philippines might have suffered a fate similar to Cambodia, becoming a killing field where millions of Khmer people perished under the regime of communist leader Pol Pot.
Again, Senator Padilla was right when he said that. I've been saying that for a long time, even in my preaching, even in my Give Us This Day program, or whatever program I have. I've said, if the former president, late President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. did not declare martial law, we would have been a communist country now under the brutal leadership of Joma Sison. And we would have been like Cambodia right now when there was the killing field.
For Pastor Apollo, the declaration of martial law in the Philippines can be considered a divine intervention to protect the Filipino people from the fate that befell nations placed under the communist regimes.
We were averted from having that kind of an experience where Cambodia's Pol Pot killed over more than 1 million or millions of people in Cambodia, the killing fields, that. That is what will happen to us if martial law was not declared. So martial law was declared as an act of the president, and it is a divine intervention. That we still now enjoy our freedom of worship and other freedoms that we would have lost if martial law during the time of President Marcos Sr. was not declared. So, I've been saying that all along. And Senator Padilla was right in saying that also.
Pastor Apollo expressed his support for Senator Padilla's proposal to declare September 21 not only as a date to commemorate martial law, but also to recognize what are known as unsung heroes.
So Padilla said, we have soldiers who gave their lives to save our nation from being surrounded by communists. We will not enjoy all of this if not for them. We are enjoying this freedom because of the sacrifices made by our soldiers. True, correct. Even until now. Even after the height of the power of this Maoist group, the CPNP and the PDF, it was the only wall of defense that we have is the armed forces of the Philippines. And they stood their ground for us. That's why we still have our freedom right now. That's why I love the soldiers. I love the armed forces of the Philippines.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNI News.
Senator Robin Padilla is calling for the withdrawal of the U.S. Navy's presence in the West Philippine Sea. According to him, their military presence may be perceived as overly aggressive by China, which has its Coast Guard patrolling the disputed territory. Vigan reports.
Sir, sagutin niyo po. Simple lang naman po yung tanong ko, Chairman.
Mr.
Inaamin po ba natin na hindi natin kaya? Kailangan natin ng US Navy doon, paikot-ikot.
Senator Robin Padilla expressed concern over the presence of the U.S. Navy patrolling the West Philippine Sea. Amid escalating tensions between the Philippines and China, Senator Robin Padilla has raised questions about the presence of a U.S. Navy aircraft patrolling the contested territory in the West Philippine Sea. During a Senate hearing in the National Defense Budget, the agency admitted to the presence of Poseidon aircraft from the U.S. Navy. Padilla argued that it would be appropriate to match the Philippine Coast Guard with China's Coast Guard, which also patrols the West Philippine Sea. However, he emphasized that military force should only be deployed during the times of war. The senator warned the tensions between the two countries could worsen if an armed U.S. Navy presence were to confront the Chinese Coast Guard, which is a civilian agency.
Buong mundo may Coast Guard. Okay? Sila ang nagpupulis ng dagat. Ang armed forces, andyan niya ang paggera na. Huwag natin ibahin kasi na tayo ang hirap naman natin na para naman tayong yan hindi naman kayo ang re-respond. Nangyari na po yan sa Scarborough Show sa panahon ng administrasyon dati. Alam naman po natin na nangyari dyan. Nung naglabas kayo ng gray ship, naglabas na rin ng gray ship ang China, kaya nga nagkaroon ng standoff dyan
Turkol, in recent days, a successful resupply mission was conducted for the BRP Sierra Madre, stationed in the West Philippine Sea. The U.S. presence was there at the time, but Department of National Defense Undersecretary Ignacio Madriaga emphasized that the country has the capacity to carry out resupply missions without the assistance of the United States.
Yung presensya po ng Amerikano doon is tulong lang po yun sa maritime domain awareness at parang may eye in the sky na nanonood ng buong pangyayari. Pero wala po tayong inaamin at hindi po tayo aamin na hindi natin kaya yung trabaho. Medyo kaya may Amerikano o sinong ibang bansa po, kaya po ng Philippine Navy, kaya ng Philippine Coast Guard po yan. Hindi po tayo susuko dyan.
Senator Padilla's concerns are supported by Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Senator Bato insisted that the patrol operations conducted by the Philippines, including the U.S. Navy in the West Philippine Sea, should not be given any other interpretation that could be seen as aggressive by China.
Alam natin, it is a universally accepted concept na yung Coast Guard talaga is not part of the military. Kasi mahirap kung magbigay tayo ng gray area for them to misinterpret, overinterpret, or underinterpret. Baka mamaya, dyan magsimula yung problema natin.
Kaya ang gusto ko lamang pong idiin, okay, kaibigan natin ng nandyan sila, maraming salamat, pero wag naman po tayo ibala.
In the end, Senator Padilla called for an increased budget for the Coast Guard to reduce its dependence on foreign assistance. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, Kay Villan, SMNI News.
In other news, Australia and Indonesia joined other allied forces in showing off their military capabilities in ongoing drills in the Indonesian island of Java. Devi Suarez reports.
Australia and Indonesian forces showed the world what they got as they deployed their respective battle tanks for the 2023 Garuda Shield exercises in Indonesia. Australian forces deployed 5 M1A1 Abrams battle tanks, and the Indonesian military sent 2 Leopard 2 tanks for the 2-week combat exercises in a coastal district in East Java province. Australia has deployed the main battle tanks outside its territory for the first time since the Vietnam War between the 1950s and the 1970s. Garuda Shield exercise started on August 31st and will end on September 13. This year's iteration convened more than 6,000 troops from Indonesia, Australia, Japan, the US and Singapore, including new participants from France and the United Kingdom. Another 12 nations joined the drill as observers. American and Indonesian soldiers have held annual drills since 2009. The multinational exercise is taking place amid tensions between the US and China. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Devi Suarez, SMNI News, Australia.
Myanmar has received the first shipment of fighter jets ordered from Russia. Anissa de Guzman tells us more.
Myanmar's industry minister confirmed 2 Russian Su fighter jets have arrived in the country at the sidelines of an international forum held in Russia. The Southeast Asian nation signed a contract with Russia to order 6 Su fighter jets in 2018, with negotiations finalized in September 2022. The multi-role fighter jet can perform a 45-hour combat mission and is designed for the enemy's aerial target engagement, aerial reconnaissance, combat employment, and pilot training. Myanmar's industry minister announced the delivery of the fighter jets on the sidelines of the 2023 Eastern Economic Forum being held in Russia's far east city of Vladivostok. The annual forum started on September 10 and ends on September 13. As ties grew between the two nations, the United States has warned that Moscow's support for Myanmar's military rulers is unacceptable and destabilizing. Myanmar and Russia will also sign a number of bilateral agreements at the East Economic Forum, including on bilateral cooperation on tourism. Disha Anissa de Guzman, Rangan Chakontep Mahanakon, SMNI News, Pradatay, Sawadika.
A latest government study in Thailand warned of the potential damage of the El Niño phenomenon to Thailand's agricultural sector as parts of the country suffer from severe droughts. Chatmongkol Pisamay Guzon reports.
Thailand's Trade Policy and Strategy Office reported that
the drought affecting several parts of the country will result in higher consumer goods prices, energy prices, and inflation while increasing international shipping costs. The government agency's Director General said El Niño sparks concern about potential damage to Thailand's agricultural sector and agro-industrial exports. Mining and livestock industries are also affected by the weather phenomenon. Meanwhile, the director of Thai Sugar Millers Corporation in a recent interview said severe drought will cause production to fall by 18% to around 9 million tons in the 2023 to 2024 season, with extreme heat and dryness to probably become worse in the coming years. The United Nations in July warned the world to prepare for the effects of El Niño, saying the higher global temperatures will stay throughout 2023. International experts have also warned of longer El Niño and La Niña events and how the weather phenomenon will disrupt the flow of rice supplies worldwide. Experts have previously warned that record-breaking temperatures, reduced rainfall, and changes in the natural climate are set to damage Thailand's economy and increase poverty in the coming months. รายงานจากราชบุรีนายชัดมงคลพิสมัยโกศล SMNI News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Back here in the Philippines, later Representative Richard Gomez is now promoting the use of earth-balling machines in the country. What is the purpose of this initiative? Here's MJ Mondihar with the report.
The world is feeling the severe effects of climate change, in increasingly powerful storms leading to flash floods and extensive flooding. There is also an alarming rise in extreme heat in various parts of the globe. One of the causes of climate change is deforestation. With this, in a privileged speech, later Representative Richard Gomez emphasized the urgency of planting more trees in the Philippines.
On the average, a tree absorbs 25 kilos of carbon dioxide every year. Per capita greenhouse gas for Philippines is about 1.2 tons per year. This means that just 48 trees absorb the equivalent of greenhouse gases for one Filipino per year. And trees do more than just absorbing greenhouse gases. Trees give us shade, prevents erosion, prevents flooding, and enhance the beauty of our surroundings.
To aid in tree preservation, Gomez suggested using earth-balling machines in government projects, particularly those that would otherwise harm trees.
As per DENR, earth-balling is defined as the process of moving trees by digging out the earth and the roots in a circular shape, leaving most of the root system undisturbed and intact.
Earth-balling is not entirely new in the country, according to Gomez. In fact, it has been used in Cebu City and Puerto Princesa City in Palawan for infra projects. However, many regional offices of the Public Works Department need more budget for this method.
Nasa 10 to 20 years ang kailangan para makapag-produce sa mga matatayog at mayayabong na mga punong kahoy gaya ng inyong nakikita. At sayang kung ito'y mahahagip lamang ng isang iglap ng mga proyekto ng pamahalaan. Sinasabi na last option ang pagpuputol ng mga punong kahoy sa mga government projects at available lamang option na yan kapag hindi pwede ang earth-balling method.
I also found out that if earth-balling was undertaken at present, it would be done manually, which is laborious and an expensive process. I believe that it is because of this complication that tree cutting permits are methodically granted to DPWH for road widening programs.
To combat climate change, Gomez plans to propose legislation making the presence of earth-balling machines mandatory in all DPWH and DENR offices. He then called support from his fellow lawmakers.
This slide will show us how a tree is successfully earth-balled and replanted. Yan, makikita nyo dyan. Yan yung mga klase ng earth-balling machines na pwedeng gamitin kung kailangan natin ilipat ang mga puno kung meron tayong road widening programs. And it only takes about 30 minutes to ball one tree. Time is of the essence. We do not have the luxury of 20 to 35 years for a tree to mature. We know that climate change is not coming. Climate change is already here. And we have to act fast. We have to act right now.
For Ganamabel of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy is suggesting finding or discovering a new technology that will help combat scammers. Sara Santos has the details.
Pastor Apollo has a suggestion following a proposal put forward by Senator Francis Tolentino that scammers should be charged with a heavy fine instead of limiting the SIM registration per individual as a way to address the continued proliferation of tech scams. For Pastor Apollo, it is better to have or find a new technology that can help detect and monitor scammers.
Even if I think you will impose a high fee to deter scammers, they have money. They want really to scam, they will spend a lot of money for that. So what we need to do maybe is to really make a scientific move to really determine who the scammers are by our, I don't know what technology can you use to really make surveillance of those scammers in our own way. I don't know what technology to use about that, you know, that we can track down scammers who are unregistered, or if they have registered them, they have so many.
Pastor Apollo added that although this problem would be impossible to solve, he still hopes that the government could come up with a measure to combat scammers lurking on social media.
It's a very, it is a very almost impossible to solve problem. So I hope that they come up with something that can really nail down these scammers on social media.
To recall, in a hearing held by the Senate Committee on Public Services, the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI Cybercrime Division, revealed that there is an open sale of registered SIM cards on various social media platforms and that SIM card registration can be faked. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Sara Santos, SMNI News.
SMNI News represented the Philippines in a media tour that delves us on the amazing history, culture, and technology of the 8th largest country subdivision in the world, China's Xinjiang region. Let's find out more about this with Jade Calabroso.
After a 9-hour journey from Manila, the SMNI News team arrived in Urumqi, the capital of the Xinjiang Autonomous Region, to witness what it has to offer to the world. SMNI News was the sole media representative from the Philippines among over 20 journalists who came from various countries worldwide. The 9-day media tour in the region comprises of journalists from Australia, Europe, Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Netherlands, Turkey, France, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the US, led by the State Council Information Office of the People's Republic of China, and was organized by the China Center for International Communication Development. The thematic media event, approaching the core zone of the Silk Road Economic Belt, aims to explore the rich culture of Xinjiang, a region located in the northwestern part of China. This provincial administrative region holds the largest land area in the country, covering approximately 1.66 million square kilometers. It also shares borders with 8 countries, including Mongolia, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, boasting the longest land border in China, stretching 5,700 kilometers. Xinjiang is also home to some 25.89 million people and is known for its vast land, cultural diversity, and history, with 56 ethnic groups, including Uyghurs, Han Chinese, Kazakhs, and more currently living in the region. Islam is the predominant religion in Xinjiang, followed by Buddhism, Taoism, Protestantism, Catholicism, and Eastern Orthodox. Our journey in the amazing Xinjiang will surely inspire new possibilities for cooperation between China and various countries. Join me on a series of features for our 9-day trip, only here on SMNI.
Reporting from Urumqi, Xinjiang, China. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNI News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. When you love God, nothing is impossible. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNInewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Angel Pastor. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.